So what kind of situations did you get in when you were riding up with the 9th Infantry?
Well, we got caught in an ambush one time. They usually had about 7 boats. They had a boat in the front called an Alpha boat. It looked like your old monitor in the Civil War. Mm-hmm. And then they had like the landing craft. Mm-hmm. They had those with bar armor on the side, and then they had 50s up on top and back. They had that all built up, and they had bar armor, so that if a B-40 rocket punched through, and they had real thick styrofoam so that it would just be channeled into one area if they hit them from the sides. Then they had 30s, 2 30s on each side, each one of the landing craft type of boats that they put the troops in. And right in the middle of that was what they call a monitor. And you've seen that. That's over on Sism Field. Okay, that's a great big boat. Yep. And then at the back they had another Alpha boat. And then all the ones in between.
So were those Navy boats or were they Army boats?
No, they're Navy. That was Navy guys doing it. I wouldn't have that job for anything in the world. No. Yeah. So anyway, we was going up, and a group had went up before us, dropped their people off, and they came right by us. As soon as we got by them, they opened up on us, and it was a bad day. We had 30 killed and 70 wounded Americans, yeah. And like the Alpha boat ahead of us, everybody but one guy was killed on it. And that boat was floating by, and still had the American flag flying. And there's one guy on the back on that 30 still shooting.
Damn.
I mean, it was, it still almost cracks me up not cracks me up, it tears me up when I think about that. But it was that's the American fighting guy. That's the way we are. And I'll give those riverboat guys all the credit in the world on those Tango boats, because they're just sitting targets, And then after we got hit, of course, we were in the 4th boat back, and we heard number 1 boats hit. That was the Alpha boat. Number 2 boats hit. Number 3 boats hit. We were number 4 boat. There were 3 of us UDT guys in that boat, and I remember looking over at a guy named going, "We're fucked." Excuse me, I shouldn't have said it. Anyway, then we got hit, blew us all down and stuff, and one of my buddies had about 53 pieces of shrapnel on him, so I crawled over to him and hit him with morphine. Got up, and the Navy guy got blown off his 30, so I was shooting that until I ran out of rounds and shit. Well, the other guy, no, that was I got hit. The other guy saw all messed up, so he goes over and didn't see my pin through his collar, so he hits him with another shot of morphine. He lived, though. And then me and we just started shooting over the sides and stuff, and the Army guys wouldn't get up and shoot. They were handing us up weapons to shoot.
Well, sometimes
loading them and giving them to us, and we were up there hammering down,
Sometimes you got a frog man up.
Yeah. Then the Cobras came in Army Cobras, and hosed everything down real good.
So were they doing like an actual landing? That's what the purpose was? And they were going to get a beach foothold and work an area for a while?
Make a sweep through there. And don't ask me why the Marines weren't doing it, why they had the 9th Infantry. I tell you why the Marines weren't doing it, was they were holding the DMZ up in north. Man. The Marines, that's their job. But the 9th Infantry did a good job. They're good troops. You know what I mean?
Well, I know you haven't listened to this podcast much, but I know you have read the book that Leif and I wrote, and you know that I have nothing but the most utter highest respect for the Marines and the Army units that we worked with. Were just phenomenal, and the sacrifices that they made and the bravery they showed on the battlefield was unbelievable on a daily basis. So I know it's definitely something.
You think about this now. Think of the training that we went through just for UDT to start with, and then I came back from UDT and went through SEAL team, so you get all the what you guys call SQT, we called it cadre back in the day. And then you go over again, you've already had your feet on the gun. Now you figure these Army guys go through basic training, and a lot of them head right over to Vietnam, you know what I mean? And they could be in Shaw Valley, anywhere, and where the crap really hit the brick. Can you imagine that? We had the training. We were volunteers. We volunteered for what we were going to do. Mm-hmm. We weren't just saying, "Here you go." We knew exactly where we were going to go, and we wanted to go. You know what I mean? So big difference.
Absolutely know what you mean. Another weird thing about Vietnam, and I've talked a lot about Vietnam books from Vietnam, guys that were in Vietnam here, and the fact that these guys would rotate out. You'd be in the middle of a deployment. You just, guys were just rotating out all the time. It wasn't like what you just described what you did in the SEAL teams and in UDT, and what we still do in the SEAL teams now, is you get with your guys, you go through a workup with those guys together as a team, then you go on deployment together as a team, and you come home together as a team. And the Army guys, they would just, they're just filling in the holes. And the guy would go home and another guy would take his place. So you never work with this, you could have a guy on a patrol with you, 2 or 3 guys you never worked with before, and you're going out on patrol with them. So it's, I don't like that system. I like the way we do it.
Reminds me of Forrest Gump. That was a pretty good little thing.
What happened there?
The new guys that came into the platoon, and
when he's checking in.
Everybody's already been there already, and they're just coming in. They hadn't worked up with these guys, nothing. They were just showing up, and popping in.
We actually did take a couple guys in when I was in Ramadi. We took a couple guys that just showed up, new guys, and we just had to slowly, we'd put them on watch.
Well, did you have people that were taken out? That's why they came in.
Yeah, they were just guys that were filling in. We lost guys, but they were just guys that they got sent to SEAL Team 3 from SQT, and when they got there, there's no one there, so they brought them over on deployment. A couple guys, it was like 2 or 3 guys, and we just, we made them work in the compound for a while, and then maybe bring them out. They'd be a turret gunner on an op, and maybe eventually let them do a little bit more.
Work them in. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. That's the way you should do it. So.
And so, any other
Vietnam,
memories?
UDT stuff. Yeah. So another time we used to be on the front boat, the Alpha boat, because we're the first ones that saw the log dams and had blow up bunkers and shit. And we had about a big stack of C4 in the back, the haversacks and shit, and all of a sudden the whole boat shook like this. We got a B-40 rocket right in one of the exhaust tubes, and we started sinking. So the coxswain ran it to shore and everything, and we were shooting back and everything, but the fucking boat was sinking. And if that had been about another 8 inches higher, it hit all that C4, But we landed, and then we swam off and got out in the river in this other, they called it a Zippo boat. It was like the troop carrier boat, but it was all napalm. Or not napalm, whatever they got in flamethrowers, flamethrower boat. Okay. And this thing just went on the beach, and we went and climbed up on that. We got out of there. Dang. Us and the crewman. That was another moment of excitement.
It's just to go off of what you just said too, and with the training that you get in special operations, SEAL teams, whatever, Rangers, SF, is a lot of times we in special operations get a lot of praise for doing what we do, and that's great and everything, but like what you're talking about, being in a conventional unit, it's the same thing over in Iraq and Afghanistan. Being a conventional guy, it's no joke. I mean, it's, in many cases, they're doing a much more dangerous job. I mean, even, a logistics job, something like that, where they're exposing themselves on a regular basis. So anybody out there that's a civilian that thinks that the conventional guys aren't taking as many risks as the special operations guys, I'm telling you right now, they absolutely are. They absolutely are. And of course, there's things that all special ops guys do that step it up as well. But everybody pays a price, and everybody takes a lot of risk when they go over there. And it sounds like it was the same thing when you had the 9th Infantry rolling up the river.
Yeah, those guys were good. They did their jobs, and if I seem to say anything derogatory, I apologize for
Oh, no, you didn't.
Those boys were
You didn't at all.
Yeah.
You didn't at all. I'm just pointing out. A lot of times, again, people, I'm sitting here thinking exactly what you just said. Here you are, you're UDT, you've been through all this training, and you when that boat starts sinking, you're like, hey, I'm going to jump on the swim. There's regular Army guys there. They're thinking they haven't had the training that you had, and yet they're still in almost the same exact situation.
Exactly. So one other thing in UDT, we were doing a beach recon, and I was a cartographer, so I'm up in front with another guy, and I have this big, huge piece of plexiglass I'm doing all the backshore information on. But I'm ahead of them. We're putting in the stakes so the guys behind us can hit every 25 meters and do their soundings and stuff. Well, we didn't. Usually we had ARVN, which are your South Vietnamese Army, or we had Marines that would do screening for us. When we were doing the beach recons, we couldn't get either one of them, so we had 2 of our own guys doing it. So they were walking, going behind. It was all a lot of sand dunes and stuff like that on the beach, and trees, little forests and stuff. Well, we almost walked right into a L-shaped ambush that they had set up for us, except the 2 guys back here, they had a spire hole back here so that when we fell back from the ambush, if any of us were still living, these guys would get us, right? They hit these guys. So it made them open up, which made them open up earlier. Then we leapfrogged down and got out of there. But that was a few moments of excitement too. And that's when I got back to the USS Daishinko, and I went, screw this naked warrior shit. Give me a 60 and carry me up and let me go out and hunt these guys at night. I don't like running down the beach in UDTs and, my coral boots shooting an M79, keeping heads down and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was but I was just UDT then, so I didn't talk too much about it, I wasn't a SEAL.
So you get back from that deployment.
Oh, yeah. And every month when I was on that deployment, me and a guy named we'd put in a chit to go to SEAL team, and they'd just chew our asses out. You ain't going anywhere until we get back, All right. So we'd wait a month and put another chit in. Well, when we got back, boom, we went right to cadre. Went checked into SEAL Team 1 and went into cadre.
And the cadre training was what we call now STT, STT, SIT.
Yeah, all your IEDs, all that stuff. And actually, on the Alamo River and a few other places, they had it set up to be exactly like it would be in Vietnam with little watchtowers. And they had a whole village that was in amongst all the shit that's on the side of the Alamo River and stuff. It was really good training. Oh. Yeah. And then they'd ambush us, we'd ambush them, they'd come down in, sampans we had there and stuff like that. And just like on when you do an ambush on a river, you always want to try to do it at a curve and hit them. So that way the sampans, after you hit them and stuff, will flow into the bank, not keep on going down the river and you can't get nothing out of them. Just all kinds of little tricks. And what they did, our cadre that ran us through our cadre instructors were guys that had just gotten back, and they pulled them out of platoon to do that for about 6 months before they went back into another platoon. So we were getting continuous guys right out of the field in Vietnam, which is real good, in different areas too. The triple canopy shit, your mangrove stuff, and the rice paddies and all that stuff.
Where would you do a bulk of the training?
Oh, out at an island.
That's awesome.
And then we'd go up to Cuyamaca for map and compass and stuff. And then a bunch of us went through what they called SEAL Advanced Training, which is for your PRU program, which was 5 months long. And that was all tradecraft, medical, and stuff like that. And really, really good. Got really honed in more even on the IEDs and stuff like that. And booby trap trails, intel trails, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
It's interesting as you talk about that, how much of that stuff, carried on to you. When I showed up at SEAL Team 1, we did we did booby trap trails. There was no war. There hadn't been a war going on for 20 years when I got there, other than the Gulf War, but we still did booby trap trails. We did point man courses. We did the medical stuff. We did river ambushes. I mean, it's awesome that and it wasn't really written down anywhere. That's
you should have had 2 weeks of advanced demo and kitchen table demo and stuff like that. Yeah, because we set all that up in SEAL Team 1. I know what you had. Should have still been going.
But that's awesome that it lasted that long, with because the weird thing about SEAL Team is we didn't used to have anything written down. I mean, there was barely anything written down. And so all that knowledge was passed word of mouth from guy to guy to guy. And I think we've corrected that now, where we capture more of the stuff.
Pretty much, yeah. But you ever want to fight Rangers? Get the Ranger Handbook.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I had against that a little bit. It still should stay in house. It should be rolled down. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't. I can give you a Ranger Handbook, and you can find out exactly how those guys are going to fight, what their methods are, everything.
And another thing I've talked about on here is when you have doctrine and you get tasked with something that's not in the doctrine, you get confused. You don't know what to do. Yeah. That's one of the reasons I think SEAL teams have been very successful in the recent past, and even in the longer past, is because we didn't have a book to look at. We had to figure out how to do it. And so no matter what the mission is, we always had a fresh look at it. We
adapt. We're unorthodox. We adapt. Right. I mean, our guys, if you had pulled a platoon right out of Vietnam and put them in Ramadi or somewhere, we'd have been lost at sea because we didn't have the training for the urban type of warfare.
Yeah.
I
know you wouldn't have been lost at sea. I know you would have, because it's the same principles are the same. The same principles that you guys taught me was the same thing we did over there.
We'd have figured it out.
Cover, move, take the high ground.
Yeah, we'd have figured it out. But you know, we didn't have overwatches and stuff like that. When it's pitch dark at night and you're working your way through real quiet, not making a lot of noise. Yeah. Everything you do is for, you know, being silent. Or just like you guys never had to do things like if you hit a real taut line, the Point Scout did, well, he'd step over it, grab the guy behind him, bring his hand down, show him where that wire was. Then he'd step over the wire, he'd put his leg over it, grab the guy behind him, and that's how we got across until we got everybody across and got a head count. Then we'd move on.
Damn.
That's just booby trap stuff. You know what I mean? That's just and you did it and you couldn't see. It was pitch black. That's why you grabbed the guy's hand and showed him where it was. And if it's a tight one, you don't cut it. If it's all loose and stuff, then yeah, cut it.
So how'd the point man see that?
Yeah, what they call it. We used you take a twig, a long stick.
You put the string on it?
No string on it, but just like a fishing pole. And you'd run that up and down like that when we moved, and you'd feel it. You can feel it just like you would if you got a trout or a bite. And then you work your hand down, you reach over there and feel and see what that is. You know?
Like a ninja.
Yeah. You know what the other interesting thing that when you started talking about SEAL Team and going out at nighttime and how that was all unorthodox and people weren't doing it is the opposite of when we were in Ramadi, we started going out in the daytime. And the reason we started going out in the day, there was a bunch of reasons why we started going out in the daytime, but one of the main reasons was the enemy knew that we owned the night. We had night vision. We had, you know, we owned the night. And so they didn't want to go out at night until they went out daytime. That's when they planted their IDs. That's when they killed people. And so we went out in the daytime because that's where the bad guys were out.
Well, you know, daytime in Vietnam, too, you'd see guys sleeping in hammocks and shit. We'd wrap them up because we knew they'd been out at night doing shit, so we wanted to talk to them. You know, just like rules of engagement and shit. When we got my last platoon, we stopped in Saigon and went to MAC 4V, and our LT got his orders, you know, and his orders were pacify the Vinh Long province.
Wow.
That was his orders, pacify the Vinh Long province. Roger that. And that's where we went off and did it, you know. No rules of engagement, nothing, just pacify it. And then it was like, okay.
Yeah. That's
And we didn't work for the Army, Navy, Marines, or anybody. We were our own entity. So if you'd been the LT over there, Jocko, you'd have had the con.
We would have had a good
Matter
time.
of fact, we were at Dong Tam. They had a naval base here, and then the big Army base here at Dong Tam. They had us stay on the Vietnamese Navy base in between them because the Navy didn't really want us on their base. Plus, their boats are right down there on the wharf, so it worked out perfect. You know what I mean? And we'd go to the Army to, you know, to test our weapons and shit like that. Yeah, and they were doing that all the time, so it wasn't like, you know what I mean? It wasn't anything unusual. You know what I mean?